in sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to be previewing the Week 8 matchup between the 2-3-1 Detroit Lions and the 2-5 New York Giants. Both teams desperately needing a victory. But before I get into it, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Play Share Daycare. One of my best subscribers was kind enough to set me up with the new fancy logo as well as the intro. So if you guys need any help on your YouTube channels or need any graphic design, feel free to contact him in the description below. I'm going to shoot his email out there, and hopefully you guys could reach out to him. But anyway, let's jump into the matchup. As I said, both teams have been off to mediocre starts at best. Both teams have dropped their last 3 games. Now, the Detroit Lions, much like the Giants outside of the Arizona Cardinal game, have played some very good opponents. Make no mistakes about it. Their last 3 losses coming to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. The Giants, of course, losing 3 straight also to the Vikings, an opponent they share, the New England Patriots, and last week to the Arizona Cardinals, which was by far the New York Giants' most disappointing performance of the year, a game in which they should have won. They had 4 extra days to prepare, a team coming across the country, but we live, we learn, we move on. The Giants' defense came out sloppy in that game, and they did recover in the second half, but you got to come out with a strong 4-quarter effort. The Giants' offense left a lot to be desired. Daniel Jones turned the ball over a few times. Pat Shurmur came out with some very poor play calling. Saquon Barkley had an injury scare, which Pat Shurmur said that they are going to have him on a limited basis. You know, they're going to carry the ball on a limited basis with him. Now, I don't know what the count's going to be, but don't expect him to go out there and have 25 carries in this game. Expect Gallman and even potentially Buck Allen, hopefully, to get some time there in the backfield. But the Giants' offense left a lot to be desired last week, and the offensive line has got to play a lot better in this game. Now, lucky for the Giants, this Detroit Lions defense is not very good. The bad news is neither was the Arizona Cardinals. So hopefully that offensive line could recoup, they could play better, and we could get things going this week against the defense who got lit up against the Minnesota Vikings last week. Now, however, they were able to put up a lot of points against a very good Vikings defense. So this will be a test for the New York Giants, especially being that it is on the road. But before we get started on the nuts and bolts of this matchup, let's go over a quick injury report. We'll start with the Detroit Lions. On the did not practice list, you have Mike Daniels, the defensive tackle, Nick Bowden, and Darius Slay. Darius Slay's been on the injury report all year, but he does seem to play through the injuries. I think this is kind of just a rest day for him as they're not trying to stress it. Bowden is new to the injury report, and he probably will miss the game. Daniels has been out for a couple of weeks, and expect him to miss this game as well. In terms of the full practice, you have Deshaun Hand, Damon Snacks Harrison, and Matthew Stafford. So I expect them all to play. Snacks Harrison, of course, a former Giant, and there are a number of them in this game, and we'll get into that as the preview goes along. For the Giants, as I said, they project to have Saquon Barkley on a bit of a pitch count, being that he rolled his ankle last week and he was able to come back in and play. Did not practice. Corey Ballantyne continues to suffer with that concussion. He was injured throughout all of preseason as well. Limited participant Sterling Shepard, and he is projected to be out for this football game, which should see an increased role for Cody Latimer, much like we said last week, who is also on the injury report but was a full participant, along with Saquon Barkley and Lorenzo Carter. So there are the injury notes. In terms of an historical perspective with these two teams when they match up, they've met a combined 45 times. The Lions hold a slight advantage at 23-21-1. They've split the last two times they've played, and the Lions won their most recent matchup in 2017. Now, when you think about this Detroit Lions offense, you think about a team, at least in the Matthew Stafford era, a team that loves to throw the football, and they struggle running it, which is why they went out there and drafted a first-round running back last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago now. And Kerryon Johnson has not done that well this year when he's in the game. Now, of course, he's now on IR, so he will be out, which is why the Detroit Lions signed the former New York Giant out of UCLA, Paul Perkins, off the practice squad, a guy that a lot of Giants fans wish that we kind of kept. So expect him possibly to get some touches to go with McKissick, who's been very good in limited action out of the backfield, averaging over 7 yards a carry. In terms of their total offense, they rank 8th in the league at moving the football, but it's done, for the most part through the passing game. They rank 6th in passing yards, 18th in rushing. Matthew Stafford has had a great bounce back year. He's lit the league on fire. He's coming off a year where his stats were nearly identical to Eli Manning last year, where he had 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And I think he did suffer an injury, which probably had something to do with the slightly disappointing numbers. This year, he's off to a really good start. 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions through 6 games with a QB rating just over 102 and 1,751 passing yards. He's averaging almost 300 passing yards a contest, and he's gotten it going. And his 2 biggest weapons in the passing game are one of the best duos in the league, and that's Kenny Golladay and Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis coming off a game in which he had 4 touchdowns for the year, 30 catches, 387 yards, and 5 scores. Golladay, very similar numbers, 25 catches, 385 yards, and 4 scores. They also have the rookie tight end, TJ Hawkinson, out of Iowa. Came out pretty good this year, I think. Though he's been used sparingly the last few weeks, but he's definitely a guy you want to keep an eye out for, as the Giants may struggle in coverage. Hopefully, Dayon Buchanan can man him up if they decide to use Buchanan in that role. Looking forward to seeing his debut with the Giants if he's able to get out on the football field. But those are their biggest weapons. And I expect to see Perkins out there, the former Giant, and we'll see how they stack up. In terms of how you should guard against this team, well, they're a team that's going to throw the football. I expect the Giants to come out and try to blitz Stafford, try to create a couple of turnovers. We'll see if they could do it. They have been able to get some pressure on the quarterback, not so much last week, but the Cardinals barely threw the football. They ran the ball a lot. Murray had just over 100 yards passing. So don't expect that from the Lions, and there's no excuses in this game in terms of weather for either team. Of course, last week it was a downpour. This game will be played in a dome. The Lions are comfortable at home. Stafford likes to throw the football, and I expect them to do so. So hopefully the Giants could create some pressure and create some turnovers. But this is a game that this inexperienced Giants defense could get lit up a bit, and the Giants offense, who struggled the last few weeks, will have to find a way to pick them up. Good news for the Giants, the Lions defense is abysmal, much like the Arizona Cardinal defense, who we didn't do much against. We only had 2 touchdowns last week in terms of our offense. We, of course, had a blocked punt for a touchdown, resulting in 21 points. To win this game, I think we're going to have to be in the upper 20s, lower 30s to have a chance on the road in Detroit. Now, that certainly can be done. You're going to have a ball control offense, and the Detroit Lions defense is awful. They rank 31st overall, 30th against the pass, 28th against the run. They're surrendering 4.9 yards per carry. So expect Barkley, Gallman, and whoever else to be heavily involved in the running game to try to help Daniel Jones out to hopefully set up that play-action pass. But, as bad of a run defense as this is, there are no excuses for Pat Shermer not to come out with a sound game plan of trying to establish a run. Now, we all know Damon Snacks Harrison is good up the middle, and this was supposed to be a strength of this team. Their front 7 looked good going into the year. They also brought in the free agent Trey Flowers, who has been mediocre at best. He only has 1 sack. Their 2 leading players in that department are actually Devon Kennard and Snacks Harrison, 2 former New York Giants, Kennard with 3 and Harrison with 2. But the team only has 10 sacks. They've surrendered 12. So I don't see why the Giants should struggle against this defense. I really don't. If you come out with a sound approach, you run the ball effectively, you set up the play-action pass, the Giants should be able to move the ball on them effectively and hopefully control the clock. They will need to win the time of possession in this matchup if they expect to win this football game, because I don't think they could go toe-to-toe with this Detroit Lions offense. Matthew Stafford is much more experienced. He's at home. They got good weapons in the passing game. I don't see it. I don't see that the Daniel Jones could air it out against Stafford in this game on the road. Just don't see it, especially without Sterling Shepard. So the Giants, to win this game, they're going to have to run the football and keep that Detroit Lions offense off the field and keep the Giants defense as fresh as possible. The Giants defense, last week, the first 2 drives looked awful. They made their adjustments. They got better over the course of the game. They need to come out strong from start to finish. Both sides of the football, if you expect to win on the road against this Detroit Lions team, a Lions team who has been pretty strong this year. I think they are better than their record. And the Lions should be favored in this game, and I'm sure they are. So Giants have to run the football. They have to control the clock. They do not want to air it out against this team, because I don't see them winning a shootout against Detroit in Detroit. We'll have to see what the game plan is that Pat Shermer comes out with. Half the time, I don't know what he's doing. Hopefully he comes out with a good game plan this week, and the Giants are able to run the ball effectively, setting up that play-action pass. Now, of course, the Detroit Lions, I think much like the Arizona Cardinals and the New England Patriots, will come out in that cover too. This is a copycat league. Daniel Jones has shown that he struggles reading that coverage, so I expect them to do so. I need to see Evan Ingram heavily involved up the seam in this game, and obviously the way to do that is to set up the play-action pass, which is by running the football. I expect Ingram to have a strong game if they're able to run the ball effectively, and I'd like to see them take some deep shots down the field with Darius Slayton. But, control the clock, and you may be able to get out of Detroit with a victory. If the Giants were able to get a win this week, they would get to 3-5 and be a game and a half out with the Cowboys on a bye. They then play the Cowboys the following week. But it's put up or shut up time. If the Giants don't win this week, it is time to look towards the future, start thinking about the draft, and, obviously we're going to, root and look for the maturation of this defense and Daniel Jones throughout the course of the season. But the offensive line has to show up this week. They have to provide a pocket for Jones, and they have to provide some holes in the running game. We'll see if they could do it off of their worst performance to date. In terms of the Lions, if they could win this game, they get back to 3-3-1 in that heavily competitive NFC North. So we'll have to see who comes out on top. I got to be honest, guys. The effort the Giants put forth last week, I cannot say with a straight face that the Giants are going to win this football game. They certainly can. I don't think the Detroit Lions are some super team, but the fact that it's on the road and the fact that I don't think they could keep up with that offense, I'm going to have the Lions winning this one. A very similar score to last week. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to pick the same score. Detroit 27, Giants 21 as the Giants drop to 2-6. Hopefully I'm wrong. The Giants get to 3-5 and we have something to look forward to week 9 against the Dallas Cowboys. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But hopefully Jones and the offense get things going and the Giants come out with a win. As always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.